Okay, well, it's dominated the week. The bill's now been introduced. It's passed its first reading. It's heading off to select committee. Actually, we will talk about that next week, actually, about making, how do you make a submission to the select committee. That will last 6 months, and then that will be interesting. But yesterday in the House was, I have to say, not Parliament's finest hour, you'd have to say. Far from it. The two things that came out of yesterday that intrigued me were the Prime Minister saying the treaty's evolving. Treaties shouldn't evolve, in my view. I mean, it's a crazy idea. And they should be what they are, or they're not, and that's the end of it. And I guess it's that level of uncertainty that makes the future so unpredictable. But the second thing that came out was the level of what you call visceral anger. Well, Barry Soper commented on it. I don't know. I sometimes think that Rawiri, Waititi and those can do visceral anger at a drop of a hat, so I'm not quite sure about that. I think you misunderstand play acting within Māoridom. I've been in a number of Māori situations where, the theatrics are part of the Māori protest tradition. And this is a good time, I would imagine. I'm not suggesting he's guilty of theatrics, but nevertheless, to introduce our Ngāti Toa guest today and iwi leader, Helmut Modlik, to start a conversation we started, I think last week sometime. Helmut, welcome to the show. Good to have you on, mate.
Kia ora, Michael. Good to be with you. And if I could just kick off with an apology. Our kōrero last week, I was prepared for talking for about 10 or so minutes and was late and was thirsty in the sun, and I think I spoke too fast, got a little bit flustered, and so apologies to you and your listeners. Look forward to a more considered discussion this week.
You never have any apology for talking to me, mate, so thank you for doing that, but you don't need to. It's good to have you on. Listen, yesterday in the House, there were scenes there that I've never seen in a New Zealand Parliament before, and I've seen issues as complex and as homosexual law reform bill, which elicited very strong motions, abortion, obviously. Tell me, am I right or am I wrong? Sometimes there's theatrics, and Rawiri Waititi and his mates got into a bit of theatrics yesterday.
Look, that's not an unfair observation. I actually was reminded both last week I attended Parliament and this week as well at the degree of theatrics that is the norm in that house. And yesterday was definitely went somewhere it hadn't been before. That's for sure.
Yes, it went there. Listen, can you just explain something to me though? In your view, does Rawiri Waititi and Te Pati Maori, who have organised the hikoi, are they representative of Māori on this issue and in general? I think a lot of non-Māori find it difficult to understand where did Te Pati Maori fit within sort of, the Māori lexicon. Can you explain, Helmut?
Yeah. Look, that's actually that's a really good question, and the brief version would be Te Pati Maori emerged out of the foreshore and seabed, you recall, seabed Act of the Helen Clark Labour government. And at its formation, the leaders who were involved with that and the subsequent parliamentarians really did occupy a place of mana and esteem in the Māori community. Their policy and their approach was pretty conservative and comparable in terms of what you saw across the political spectrum. In the intervening years, and most recently, for a range of reasons that probably reflect where we've got to in our I guess our treaty and Māori issues, they've got to a point where it is now, they're now considered to be leaders in activation. They are a voice of resistance to stuff, particularly in the last year. And I would say in particular in the last year, they have got to a point of being recognised as a valuable voice for the Māori community in that house and they have a established network for organising, as they've shown with the hikoi. But it's fair to say on the issue of the treaty and the bill that they are in absolute lockstep with the rest of. I personally have not met a single Māori person that doesn't agree that this is a illegitimate attempt at public policy.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that in just a second. I'm just interested, though, where iwi leaders fit. See, it's a labyrinthian culture you exist in, Helmut, but I guess you might argue that about Pākehā political organisation as well. You have a number of iwi, you have a number of iwi leaders. There used to be an iwi leaders forum. In fact, I think there still is. You probably go to it.
Still is, yeah. Still is, yeah.
If the government was to engage with the Māori people, and let's just say they had engaged on this particular bill prior to introducing it, where would they go?
Yeah, I think just like if you ask the same question for the wider community, if you're wanting to engage New Zealanders on a topic, where would you go? You know, New Zealanders...
Well, I'd go to the government.
Well, you'd get the government's view, but I thought you were asking if you were wanting to talk to Māori people. And so if you were wanting to talk to non-Māori people, where would you go? There is civil society is always, complex and segmented and fragmented. It's the same thing with any society, including our own. So in terms of the structures that are in place, yep, our traditional hapua niwi structures are in place still. There are modern ones. So in the cities, as most people would know, you go up to Auckland, got large urban authorities that exist. There are topic-specific groups. So the Māori Women's Welfare League is a 70, 80-year-old organisation for Māori women to serve the community. So there's a number of aggregations or groups, if you like, that could be spoken to.
Okay, but so again, the question is, I want to get the representative view of the Māori people in this country. Where would I go? Do I go to the iwi leaders forum if I'm the government of the day, or do I go somewhere else?
Yeah, so if you're looking to get a temperature take on what the Māori community are thinking on any topic, you'll get close to that if you go and speak to the iwi leadership forum. Yes, you will.
Okay, and the role of the Māori King, now the Māori Queenie, what is that? I mean, I understand the origins of it, obviously, and the origins of the King movement and the influence upon Tainui, etc. But where does the Māori King sit, or the Māori King movement, now the Māori Queen, within that structure?
Yeah, look, that's a good question too. So the Kingitanga movement emerged in the 19th century, as you've said, as an attempt to unify, to create a peer-to-peer, mana-to-mana voice. It never was a vehicle for all of the hapua tribes of New Zealand, but a substantial number. And really its influence, I think it's fair to say, has flowed out of the mana of the individual kings and queens that have come along. And in the current setting, particularly in the last few years, in the last year in particular, the leadership shown by Kingi Tuheitia previously, and where we're at, the Kingitanga has mana amongst our people, make no mistake about that. And the views that are expressed, the mana. Mana is the right word. Our people pay serious attention to what comes out of the king, and they've tended over the decades to intentionally not be political in the usual sense of that word, and instead to be in a very similar way to what the sovereign, in the UK tries to be an intergenerational institution, for a glue institution. That's pretty much what our Kingitanga tries to be as well.